Let's bring in Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, it's great to see you this afternoon. So in terms of where Ukraine is in the peace deal, here's what a U.S. official said earlier today. The Ukrainians have agreed to the peace deal. There are some minor details to be sorted out, but they have agreed to a peace deal. Rustam Umerov, who was the national security advisor for Vladimir Zelensky, said, quote, "Our delegations reached a common understanding on the core terms of the agreement discussed in Geneva. Forward to organizing a visit of Ukraine's president to the U.S. at the earliest suitable date in November to complete final steps and make a deal with President Trump." I mean, it sounds encouraging.
Yes, John, it is. I commend President Trump for trying to bring this war to a close while preserving Ukrainian sovereignty and independence and not rewarding Russian aggression. I know President Zelensky has been working with President Trump in that direction now for many months. Obviously, Vladimir Putin has been the obstacle here. It sounds like Secretary Rubio had very productive meetings in Geneva over the weekend with the Ukrainian team, hammering out some of the key elements of any agreement that preserves Ukraine's future and sovereignty, and maybe most important from the United States standpoint, doesn't encourage this war to restart in the future if Vladimir Putin or his successor wants to invade again. One part of that is having defensive or defensible terrain for Ukraine. Obviously, Ukraine is going to lose some territory. Territory is still being won and lost on both sides as we speak. But it's very important that Ukraine have defensible lines where they have dug in for years to protect against a future invasion. Second, Ukraine has to have a military strong enough to deter that invasion. You know, we ask our partners in Europe and Asia to do more. Ukraine has been doing more for years. We want them to continue to do so. And then three, I don't think we should meet Russia's demands that we recognize the territory that they unlawfully seized. We haven't done that in the Republic of Georgia for 17 years. We didn't do it for 75 years during the Cold War when Soviet Russia seized Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. We shouldn't do it here. But I'm pleased to hear that both President Trump and President Zelensky are moving forward. I hope that this is not the case we've seen in the past where Vladimir Putin is once again the obstacle to peace.
Yeah, well, I mean, that chicken may yet come home to roost. I read some interesting articles today on the origin of this peace deal. Apparently, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were flying back from the Middle East Peace Conference and started writing out, well, how could we put together a deal, a peace deal for Ukraine and Russia? They got some input from the guy who runs the Russian Sovereign Fund, Kirill Dmitriev. And it appeared that the initial part of the plan was very heavily weighted toward the Republican side, something that Caroline Leavitt disputed. Listen to what she said earlier this week.
The idea that the United States of America is not engaging with both sides equally in this war to bring it to an end is a complete and total fallacy.
But at the same time, it called for Russia to have parts of the Donbass that it doesn't even occupy now, limiting the size, as you alluded to, of Ukraine's military and giving up forever aspirations to join NATO. I didn't think that was something that Ukraine would ever accept, but we don't know exactly where we are now. And the big question is, if Zelensky agrees to something, will Putin?
Well, John, I think it matters a lot more where things end up than where things started. Secretary Rubio briefed me and a few other senators and congressmen late Saturday night that this was, in fact, a part of a U.S.-backed effort, taking input from both the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. Not surprisingly, they both probably want some things that the other side might not be thrilled about. But what matters in the end is where we end up. And like I said, what's most critical, I believe, for future stability is that Ukraine have defensible territorial lines. Terrain and geography really matters. There's a military that can deter Russia in the future, and that we never reward Russian aggression by recognizing the territory they've unlawfully seized in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why Russia wants that area that you alluded to there, it's the area around Sloviansk, is because that's a huge fortress, if you will, that Ukraine has established there, very defensible lines. And if it gives that up, there's all flat land beyond that. And for Russia to one day in the who knows when future decide to roll some tanks across Ukraine, it might make it easier for them to take the rest of the country if they had that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, John. Terrain and geography matter so much, in addition to the fortifications that Ukraine has built up for 11 years, since the first invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin on President Obama's watch. That's why the details really matter here. I know that President Trump and Secretary Rubio understand that, and they're working with President Zelensky to make sure that we don't just have an end to fighting now, but we don't have a resumption of fighting in the future.
All right. Senator, good to have you on today. Thank you for spending time with us, and we wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, John. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
All right. We'll see you soon.